This is Whitney, and you're listening to the J-Cast on Jabberlog.
Welcome to Within the Trenches. True stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with Jabberlog on the J-Cast, and I'm sitting here with my co-host Whitney, and this is episode number 9 of Within the Trenches. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm thankful to be back for another episode, Ricky.
That's right. We are filling up our schedule with everybody who's wanting to be on the show, which is excellent. We've got a lot of good interviews coming up for everybody to learn from, public, dispatch, anybody who listens. You know, you get a lot of good stuff out of it. That we've even had officers, that have been listening to this and have been telling us, this is something that everybody should listen to within our field, and especially the public too, so they can learn more about it. The officers, some of them, one of them specifically has said that he's learned more from some of the episodes that he's listened to than what he's learned his whole career. And that's excellent, because that not only helps us, but that helps them too out in the road. So yeah, we've been very grateful for that. And for this episode, we are joined by Bobbi, a communications operator with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. How's it going?
It's going well, thank you. How are you guys?
We're
excellent. Good. We're excited to have you on here.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Some wonderful questions. Bobbi, up to this point, has been my most active participant. I've received the most emails from Bobbi, and I had to tell Ricardo, I appreciate Bobbi. I don't even know her, but I appreciate her type A personality. The amount of information I've gotten from you and how it was structured and how your emails were put forth. I had to chuckle to myself, and I said, there is somebody else out there like that. It's not just me.
Yeah, Whitney's the same way.
Yes, it's very. I love it, and I'm thankful because I was able to generate some really good questions. Because I affectionately joke that Canada is America's hat. And we're thankful to always have you on board with us.
Exactly.
Oh, the Queen's Cowboys.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
I think we're just the president's pinheads down here in America.
This is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. Bobbi, can you explain? You are in North Vancouver, British Columbia, right?
That's correct.
So for anybody listening here in the States, that's a straight shot north of Seattle area?
Yeah, about 2 hours north of Seattle driving.
Okay, two-hour trip on the road there.
Yeah.
Okay, now what's the difference between North Vancouver and Vancouver? Because I looked, and it looks like they're actually separated by water. It's just not two different jurisdictions.
Yeah, it's basically just an inlet across the two. We look over onto Vancouver, actually. It's basically a suburb of Vancouver, if you will. Okay. But they are broken up in jurisdictions. There's the Vancouver PD, and then we do the RCMP on the other side.
Okay. Gotcha. So now when you say RCMP, just so everybody knows, that stands for Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And we were joking before we went live that Canada has 187,000 different acronyms. So if Bobbi's throwing out acronyms, I'm going to jump in there, Bobbi, and just have you clarify at least once or twice.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure I will.
Yeah, it's so easy for you. Okay.
We also joke that it's now becoming the Royal Canadian Mental Police.
I hope there's some stories behind that.
Yeah, there should be a story behind that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, every day there is.
Okay, so just explain what you do, because when you say you dispatch for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is this at a federal level? Is this more down at a local level?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way it's set up in Canada, they have some operational communication center, which we call OCCs, of course, are set up with like within the RCMP, and they're federal. And then some cities go through the actual city for employment and contract it out. Okay. But ultimately, we're all under the umbrella of the RCMP unless you're a municipal police force, which we have here too. It would be much easier if they made it all one, really. Yeah. Because you can be municipal or you can be RCMP. Okay. Which I've done both. Like I technically work for the city of North Van, but I work for the North Vancouver RCMP, and I dispatch them and take calls for them, non-emergency and emergency.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I found on one of the websites you had sent me for RCMP, it said that 1/3 of the RCMP force is in British Columbia alone.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the bulk of the population out in Ontario. They are under Ontario Provincial Police, the OPP.
Oh, I almost broke into song.
Yeah, I won't go there.
Yeah. Everybody else who's listening to this will probably do the exact same
I
thing.
threw my hands up in the air and everything and looked at Ricardo and I said,
she,
whoop.
she pulled back.
I see a theme song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go on.
So the way it is set up within the Lower Mainland district that I work in, which is the Greater Vancouver area, you have municipal and provincial OCCs, and as well we have a center called ECOM, which is like an amalgamated center that is totally run like a business. So it's kind of set up a little bit differently than probably how you guys have it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds
of course,
like a lot.
One thing about the RCMP is nothing is ever simple. It'll be as complicated as possible.
Clearly. And they're actually doing a really wonderful job of making it incredibly difficult to understand.
Yeah, with all the acronyms and everything.
Yeah. How long have you been dispatching for, Bobbi?
I'm now in my 6th year of doing it. So
How did you get
6
involved?
long years, but I love it.
How did you get involved? Was it something you just kind of swung into and applied for an ad, or was it something you've always thought about doing?
Well, to be honest, I never really thought about it. There's kind of 2 reasons I got started. One of them was when I was 13, my mom was killed in an accident, and my dad was an officer.
Really?
And he ended up being first on scene.
Oh, my goodness.
And the RCMP completely reached out to our family and helped us out a lot during a tough time. And so I always felt kind of a brotherhood there, like an extended family. And so fast forward about 6 or 7 years, and my dad calls me up and he says, well, hey, Bob, he's like, I know the perfect job for you, and you even get to be on the phone.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as a teenager, I'd spent a lot of time on the phone. And he said, yeah, they're desperate for people. They'll hire anybody, even you.
Yeah, even better.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dad. It was kind of like this backhanded compliment, and I'd never really thought about it. But I went to the orientation session, and one thing led to another, and I guess here I am. But you have to go through quite a rigorous process to get in.
Yeah, when I was looking through the website, it's not just a background check and a typing test and then a formal interview where you interview in front of a panel. I mean, you have to go through psychological testing, it looks like, and a medical evaluation, and they're
really?
not kidding around, are they?
Yeah, they're pretty serious about that. And of course you have to do a hearing test, which makes sense, right?
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, what?
Yeah.
Is the phone ringing or what's going on?
But the nice thing is once you get in, the people that you're working with are all on the same level, which I find is really nice. Like everybody's gone through the same process, and so you work with the best of the best. Really, is how I see it.
That's a reassuring feeling knowing that.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a grueling process. The day that I passed my interview, I was so excited, and I was driving home, and I guess I was a little too excited on my gas pedal, and I ended up getting a speeding ticket.
Oh no.
So I'll never forget that day, June 20th of 2007.
Oh man.
And you couldn't tell them, you know what, I just passed my interview, everything's great.
Funny thing.
Can you let me go?
I think maybe if he had been RCMP, he might have understood, but he was Vancouver PD, and they're a little tougher, I think.
You should have just started a high-speed pursuit.
Yeah.
And been like, we'll work with you. Just keep going.
I was just wanted to test you, that's all.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got my start, and I was initially sent to Kelowna, which is in the interior of our province, and I worked there for a couple of years, but then I wanted to come back down to the Vancouver area, so I've worked at several agencies down here, and currently have 3 positions that I work at.
Holy cow.
Jeez.
Can you elaborate on those positions?
Yeah, I work full time out of North Van, so we have 4 on, 4 off, and then on my days off, then I work at other agencies nearby at our headquarters in Langley. and as a casual, just to fill in there and
South of you?
help with leave and different things like that. So keeps me busy, that's for sure. My calendar is very colorful.
I can imagine. Is
like
Langley south of Vancouver, or just on the outside of Vancouver? How does that work?
Yeah, it's kind of in the suburbs, I guess. It's probably about an hour's drive from downtown Vancouver. So we have all these little cities kind of within what we call the Vancouver area. And we have Surrey. I'm sure you guys have heard of Surrey, probably somewhere on the news.
Have it on my iPhone.
Bless Surrey.
I only have it on my iPhone.
Fired. How about that?
Yeah. Whitney says that
Sorry.
No, I was just saying that Whitney is cracking a joke saying that the Siri that she only knows is on her iPhone.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another story. No, it's all these little cities are kind of on the outskirts. Like I guess Bellevue would be to Seattle kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
It's part of the area, but they're their own entity, I guess, if you will.
And so when the job of emergency services and everything got, into your skin, into your blood, it really got in there if you've got, these three positions that you're doing. So when you started all this, you got the interview and everything else, what kind of training process did you have? I mean, did you have somebody who was just sitting there with you, in this, in the center, or, did they start you out in a room by yourself first to learn the basics, or did they just throw you to the lions? Because I know when I got my start at a smaller police department, it was, you're going to watch me for a couple of calls, and then bam, you're taking that first 911 call.
Got the cord.
Yeah, exactly. Just right after those first few calls. So how did it work for you?
Within the RCMP, they have the Telecoms Operator Apprenticeship Program, which they refer to as the TOAP.
Yes, surprise!
I know, and it's actually kind of a neat process because we have a training center in Chilliwack, which again is on the outskirts of Vancouver, mm-hmm. And you go there normally for 7 weeks. At the time that I joined, they didn't have anybody to teach the class, so myself and 6 other people were put into a 3-week crash course put on in Kelowna. Wow. Which was great. We all succeeded and did well. And then we went over to the center and we started to observe with a trainer plugged in and took calls and basically learned the ropes hands-on after that.
Wow. Do you remember one of your first emergency calls? Was it pretty nerve-wracking for you, or were you just thinking, nah, I got this. This is what I'm going to do, and that's it?
I'd say I felt pretty confident. The first domestic I took really stands out. It was really quite funny. So I have 2 people on the line, and in that kind of center, quite often the members are the officers, what we refer to them here.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So they're sometimes 40 minutes away from a call because somebody lives out in Timbuktu.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to keep those callers on the line and keep things civil. So my first domestic, I had a man and a woman, and they're back and forth, and I thought, I need to get control of this. So luckily, they had 2 portable extensions, so I got them each on a portable phone and separated. And I'm basically mediating between the 2 until the officers get there. At this point, there wasn't really any violence, but it was escalating to that. Mm-hmm. And I leaned back in my chair, and my chair dumped me right over.
Oh, no.
And I mean, I have a pretty dark sense of humor, but it was really funny. I still had my headset connected, and I could hear them both going, "Are you okay?" And they're laughing hysterically.
Oh man!
And I thought, well, if this is what happened in order to, de-escalate a situation, I'm okay with that.
Yes, everything happens for a reason. The officers probably got there and they're like, you might want to turn back around because clearly we're not having as rough of a day as that operator was.
Yeah, just having a domestic with a chair.
And the chair won.
Yes, longest assault.
It was really interesting in that center because we just got all kinds of calls. Like there was calls there that I, because we had land, air, we had all the elements there, I guess, if you will. So one day I picked up the phone and there was a helicopter crash right in the middle of a city. And that was another poignant call. There was a lot of random stuff, avalanches, everything, you name it. So it was a really good experience for training in that center in particular. And it was busy. It was so busy there.
Did you have a lot of time, like downtime in between calls where you could, work on emails for work and that kind of stuff? Or was it pretty much you disconnected one call and you grabbed another one?
Right.
Yeah, at the time that I was there, it was basically one call to another. There were some nights where you barely said hello to your partner next to you unless you were requesting some assistance or something like that. It was pretty busy. You'd maybe get, on some occasions you get an hour or two of downtime, but it was pretty busy for the amount of staffing we had at the time and the volume of calls that was coming in.
What kind of staffing do you have? I don't remember if you said it before or not, but how many people are working in the center at the time? You say that, you wouldn't have enough time to say hello or something to the other people there. So how many would be working at a time that you would be in there on a shift?
Generally about 16 to 17 in the original center I worked in. And what they were hoping for was about 20 to 25. So it'll give you an idea of kind of the shortages we were dealing with.
Wow.
Because obviously operators don't come out of nowhere.
Right.
To go through the process, the clearance, and even to find people that actually want to do the job.
Yeah.
You have to kind of sell it.
You do. And I've mentioned before on one of our episodes, and I said it affectionately, but all dispatchers are kind of weird in our own little way. And I also had mentioned, I think we all need to be medicated at sometimes because it takes a different breed of a human being to do this job, to want to do it. Again, I had mentioned in a prior episode that, nobody forces us here and makes us stay here. We don't come here kicking and screaming. We show up every day because we want to.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it does require certain personality and strong personalities. You won't find a weak personality in these centers.
No.
So of course if you're on shift and the conversations start, you can tell that there's a lot of strong personalities.
Yes,
but at the same time, you're kind of thanking your blessings because if they were weak, you wouldn't want to have a priority going on and have weak people around, right?
Yeah, that timid response or anything. Should I send so and so or what do you think? And you don't have time. It's just send them.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just do what you got to do. So, yeah, your training then. If you were taking calls with avalanches and helicopter crashes, that's definitely just the avalanches alone. I mean, we don't have anything like that here.
No.
We have horses in the roadway sometimes.
Yeah.
And
it gets a little crazy.
Yeah.
Got the Queens Cowboys down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a variety. And of course, in the summertime up there, because of all the lakes, you'd have, drownings and winters avalanches and accidents all over the highways. And it was quite a variety. So it gave me a good exposure then to move on and come down to the coast where things are, a little bit different. And in North Vancouver, it's relatively mild and pretty easygoing compared to that center. So if your kindergarten is kind of like, I say this with bittersweetness, a bit of a hell,
Yeah.
and you go to heaven, it's kind of good.
Yeah, no
Right. If you can think of any of the calls that you've taken, and for anybody listening to this who's not within a profession, they might think that this sounds, odd or something like that. But we all have a specific type of call that we enjoy taking, something. And when I say enjoy, I mean, because we want to help people out, and it's the kind of call that, we hope for so that we can help them out in that situation. So if you can think of any type of call, domestic, land, water rescue or anything like that, what kind of call is one that you would take more than another one?
I actually enjoy difficult callers, like the challenge of basically having them say thank you by the time they get off the phone. And I seem to be a magnet for that. But I enjoy kind of helping the elderly and things where there's kids involved, or even to mediate when there's parties involved, like parents having issues parenting their kids.
Right.
I'm really happy to jump in and have a chat with little Johnny about his behavior, and and I've done it, and it's actually quite nice because I feel like I get off the phone and maybe there's some sort of solution there where they didn't need police after all.
Right.
And that's a difference too in our centers with the RCMP. Basically, we're only dealing with police calls. The medical and fire go elsewhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so we're only really dealing with police matters or things where people don't know who else to call because there's a bear in their yard, or
That's another one we've never
I
had.
hate when that happens.
It helps if people don't leave their garbage out.
Yeah. Bobbi, when
But those are the kinds of ones that I like to feel like I helped a lot with situations and diffusing them. It's quite an art to diffuse a situation with the power of a telephone. And not have a presence there other than through a receiver.
Right, exactly.
And so I really enjoy the challenge of that. And that's probably my favorite. I mean, there's so many, I like a challenge, basically. You give me a challenge and I'm up for it.
Bobbi, to contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, do your callers dial 911?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same. Will it automatically route them into an RCMP call center, or will it just route them into whatever local jurisdiction provides coverage for that area, like a municipality or?
Well, and with the issues with cell phones, of course, but it has to go through what we call PSAP, which is another acronym, which is the Primary Safety Answering Point. And basically, they're the police, fire, or ambulance people. I call it jokingly a gun, stretcher, or hose. Do you need a gun, a stretcher, or hose? In case if you don't know, let's get to the chase here. And then they direct your calls, to whoever you need. Of course, if there's an accident, it'll go to ambulance first, and then the following calls, because of course you get 10,000 calls on those. Then it'll start coming to police and fire. They distribute the calls to the relevant agencies.
Okay, another thing I have to ask you about is Ricardo and I joked about this, and I hope you can give us an honest answer without divulging too much. You have top secret RCMP security clearance.
Yes.
So is that just allowing you into a building, or do you know a lot of sweet stuff that we don't know about?
Well, honestly, I don't know, because we have an enhanced security clearance, but the reason that I have that is because I work at headquarters, and of course you're dealing with national priority stuff.
Okay.
And really, I can't tell you that I've seen a whole lot that is a big secret. Maybe because I don't look for it. I don't know.
So you don't get like a special parking spot or the key to the director's awesome bathroom or nothing like that with that clearance?
No, they do have classifications of our security clearances. So if you're going to work at front counter of a police station, you might just have a reliability clearance because of what you're seeing and what you have access to.
Oh, okay.
So if you have, I guess, lots of access to everything, then I guess they give you, a top secret clearance. But
gotcha.
Where can I sign up for one of those?
Yeah.
Come join us in the north.
Yeah. So
we're hiring.
There's no tank or jet or nothing that you get to utilize.
No, I wish. No, that'd be really nice. And even then, you have to fight over a parking spot. Right. So it's really not a pass to anything other than information that I probably don't really care about anyways.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what another baloney title then. Well, it looks really cool on your resume about that.
Oh,
yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, Whitney told me about that. I was like, wow, that sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was discussing, we were talking, Ricardo and I worked last night, and one of the sergeants came up and we were discussing, the different interviews that we had lined up for today. And I was going over some facts for the sergeant. And I said, yeah, I can't believe that, 1/3 of the RCMP is in the British Columbia area. And he kind of looked at me and he said, I think that's where all their people are at. And then we talked about that top security thing, and he said, I forget what Ken said after that. But
yeah, I'm not sure either, but
another good one-liner. And
well, yeah, it's definitely busy. Like the center that I started in, that is the busiest 911 center in Canada.
Sounds like
is it in all of Canada?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Well, the busiest RCMP one, I'm like maybe Toronto could be busier for all I know, but
and that's the one you started in.
Yes, that was my kindergarten.
Gosh,
what a way to get started.
You probably have your feet up now and you're drinking a cup of tea and just hanging out in your center now.
Yeah.
Totally I am.
Yeah. I see you with your sun lamp over there and getting your tan on.
Yeah, and I look back at it and I go, how did I survive that? Because it was just so crazy. And of course, you're going through the training program at the same time, so you have that added pressure. It's not like you're a seasoned operator going in there, and all of a sudden you're released to all the wild, right? But it was very, it was very trying sometimes, and new scenarios. And now I just feel like, okay, bring it. I can handle it.
Yeah. How did you deal with a lot of your, more priority calls? I mean, do they have like a type of debriefing or anything, or, just talking amongst your peers there, or how did you really do it? Because I know, we take a lot of crazy calls and we don't always get, for one, that closure or time to talk to anybody else. So do you guys have something set up in that sense to be able to deal with some of those calls, or do you just keep going on and going on?
Well, they're actually very good about that. I think for years they would kind of forget about the operators involved, and now if there is a critical incident, it's mandatory that we go to a critical incident debriefing with the officers. Mm-hmm. And I find that's really helpful. And then, of course, you have your own methods of dealing with that. But even within the centers, there's a lot of support. We have something that we call MEEP, which is Member Employee Assistance Program. Okay. And so, if you need your own personal help to deal with a call, you can also resort to that. But quite often the police force involves the operators now and will include you in a debriefing to assist you in processing that. And of course, they schedule it later on. It's not like right after the incident, but they're pretty good about that to help you.
Have you ever been involved in a critical incident?
Several of them, yes.
Yeah. Is there any that you would feel comfortable just touching base on?
We had one not too long ago in North Vancouver with a little. Basically, it ended with a little guy that drowned, and right away they did involve us in a debriefing because the members were all incredibly distraught, of course, and it was just a really bad call, start to finish, and that was one that really hit me. I was dispatching for that one. And the thing that, bothered me was that there was a child and one of my officers who is normally calm, cool, and collected 10-4, was yelling into my ear from the pool. And of course that shook me because you get a member in trouble and then you get a child. Right. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, you listen to these people all the time on the radio and everything, your friends, your close friends, they become family, and you hear that switch in their voice. And that, then for sure, knowing this whole time, like you were saying, he's been a certain way, but then you hear how they get emotional in their voice, and it's just, it's just over the radio that you hear that, and that's just enough to destroy you.
Yeah, in a way you feel kind of helpless, like you are helping, but you feel like you want to do something more rather than just listen and record, basically.
Yeah. I find it to be a very primal response to want to either climb through the phone and help out. Sometimes you feel so helpless. That can be one of my biggest frustrations when I'm taking 911 calls, is that I know if I was there hands-on, I could be so much more effective, but I have to remind myself that I am being effective just in a different way. Some people can't give CPR over the phone. It's too hard. They have to be hands-on. They have to be seeing what they're doing. But like I said, it's so primal, just, that feeling of
instinct.
Yes, that panic that comes when you can hear their voice change in one radio transmission. Their whole world has just changed.
For sure. And the backlash of that. And I know when I first started, I thought, what's my coping mechanism going to be for this job? Because I really had to think about it. And, some people will go out and hit golf balls and, they're all fine. But one thing about RCMP buildings, if you ever get a chance to come up and visit, you will find that the buildings have a gazillion doors in them. I don't know why. Maybe that's for the security clearance. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's how you get your face.
Maybe that's what it gets you through is all the doors. I don't know. But one thing I learned early on is to check my things at the door on the way out. So basically leave a concern at every door. And by the time I got to the last door, coming off a night shift, I felt like I had just closed down the bar and it's time to go home, and that was it.
And Bobbi, that's so proactive to do that. I've never thought of, being proactive and saying, I'm already going to establish and identify what my coping mechanism is going to be before I need it. Because, sometimes we can go home at the end of a shift and it's been rather boring. And you don't want to say that because 911 isn't boring. We love our job, but really it could be uneventful. It could be a lot of car deers, motorist assist, stuff like that, where it's nothing traumatic, but it's bad to wait till that last minute and then just need a coping mechanism. So I invite everybody to really take what Bobbi said to heart and be proactive. Figure out, what am I going to do when I have to I have to have a coping mechanism instead of, turning to alcohol or you messing with your sleep schedule, that kind of stuff. Think of something proactive and have it ready to go when you need it. That's good.
Something totally healthy. Well, a friend of mine once told me, she said, in a way, and she was kind of a mentor for me because she had dispatched longer than I had, and we'd been friends all through high school. She said, we're kind of like a giant tissue box. You keep putting a tissue in, and you keep putting a tissue in. Eventually, it could be just a normal tissue, but it makes you want to blow, right? The box is too full. Mm-hmm. And she used this kind of analogy, and so I've always made sure to have my mechanisms in place. My humor is definitely one of them. I have a very dark sense of humor.
Yeah, sense of humor is definitely something that we need with this type of job. But, I was going to ask you right before you gave this information if you had a message, but that message right there is huge. It's something for everyone to think about and really do. Because I myself, as you guys are talking about it, I've never thought about that myself to set that aside and think how I'm going to cope with something, because I'm usually the type of person who waits for the last minute to think of something. I'm always.
That's why I schedule all the interviews.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
like fight or flight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so.
I'm better under pressure. If I have a little pressure, I do my best work. But as for coping, though, that's something that I've never really thought about until this episode. So I'm going to take that to heart so that I can deal with things a lot better myself, because doing these shows and everything is therapeutic for myself, and I hope that it's therapeutic for for you or anybody else to get this stuff out, because that's why I wanted to to do this show, for Whitney and I to be able to talk to people and really get our stories out there so that we can cope with things. But yeah, your message, that was excellent. That's
so if it was really unintended, you nailed it. Good job.
Oh, yay. Well, the nice thing is with the coping mechanism with my door theory is that it applies to anything. Even if, I've had a supervisor who screamed at me, I can process that and check one thing at the door on my way out every time. It doesn't just apply to one certain call or one certain situation. And, that it just makes it so I go home happy. Yeah. And, but I'm always happy to return too, right? So
Ricardo, if you see me walking in and out of our center like 13 times, it's because you won't stop yelling at me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to check a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm
there wasn't enough doors.
So. Sorry to keep walking in and out of the office, but I'm just busy checking. Just I got another 6 things to check.
Yeah, a few more doors and I'll be good to go.
Yeah, it was just this thing that I just visualized, and I thought, because my first few weeks on the job, I was observing a lot of stuff, and I thought, okay, I need to have a coping mechanism, and that's what I came up with. So it's a little bit of creativity and that kind of thing put together. And I still use it to this day, 6 years in. I still, check stuff at the door. Right.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah. And I encourage people that I train too to do the same, because a lot of people, may not think of that. And all of a sudden they've had a bad call and then they are trying to cope. Mm-hmm. But if you have it in place before, it's kind of like almost becomes a routine, I guess.
No, definitely. I understand completely. And on that note, we are going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you very much, Bobbi, for joining us.
Thanks, Bobbi, because I know.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're 3 hours behind us. And so we had to catch you on your day off and do a lot of time sensitive work to try to get you on the same page as us. So I thank you for that. You had mentioned you had another family member watching a soccer game, so you had to slide into a different room in your house.
Yeah, I'm in a privatized office. Yay.
Yeah, awesome. So,
thanks for having me, you guys. I'm really happy you guys are doing this project. I think it's amazing to share and hear all the stories, and it's even more awesome to be a part of it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Hang out here for just one moment. I'm just going to wrap this up really quick. So for anybody who's listening to the show at the moment, you can always reach us by email, thejcast@thejabberlog.com, as well as wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @Jabberlog, and then you can catch all of the episodes and post on thejabberlog.com. Thank you very much once again.
And we're also going to put a link to the RCMP's website up with Bobbi's episode so that you can check it out, the Queens Cowboys, and see what they're wrangling in up there.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks again, Bobbi.
Awesome. Thank you again.
You just listened to Within the Trenches on the JCast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to thejcast@thejabberlog.com.